It is the morning of January 15, 1947, in a quiet Los Angeles neighborhood. A housewife, Betty Bersinger, is walking her child through an empty lot on Norton Avenue when she sees something on the ground. At first, she assumes it is a discarded mannequin. As she approaches, she realizes it is much worse. The body of a young woman, neatly split in two at the waist. The sight is horrifying but strangely bloodless. Later investigators note that despite the extensive mutilation, there isn't a drop of blood at the scene. Shocked, Bersinger screams for help, and the police rush to the scene. Who is the victim? She is soon identified as Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old woman from Boston. Elizabeth spent her youth in New England and Florida before moving west in the hopes of becoming an actress. By July 1946, she had settled in Hollywood, working jobs like waitressing to pay the bills while chasing stardom. Short was known to dress stylishly, often in dark clothes, and she dreamed of a more glamorous life in Los Angeles. In the press frenzy that follows, editors note her preference for black outfits and even borrow the title of a film noir, dubbing her the Black Dahlia. Investigation reveals Elizabeth's final movements. On January 9, 1947, she had returned to LA from a trip to San Diego with a man named Robert "Red" Manley. Red, a 25-year-old married salesman, tells police he drove Elizabeth to the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles and helped her into the lobby. He claims he simply turned to leave and that Elizabeth was planning to meet her sister, but she never checked in. Manley quickly becomes a person of interest because he was the last known person to see her alive. The break-in on her disappearance is hazy. By January 15th, Elizabeth Short is missing, and 5 days later, her body will be found. Returning to the crime scene, police and reporters swarm the empty lot. Detective Marty Cohn and Officer Murphy sweep the area for clues. Photographer Marguerite "Aggie" Underwood snaps pictures of the lot and evidence markers. On the ground, they find a single heel print near tire tracks, and even a cement bag stained with what appears to be diluted blood. The evidence is chilling. The victim's legs are positioned apart as if put on display. It looks like a macabre arrangement. The killer has posed the body. Locals are terrified by the news. The brutality of the murder, a body split in half and carefully cleaned, makes it clear a very skilled, very dangerous person is at large. The grim task of identification falls to the coroner. Los Angeles County Coroner's pathologist Dr. Michael Hennessy performs the autopsy on January 16th. He reports that Elizabeth Short was killed by hemorrhage from multiple head and facial wounds in shock. Incredibly, her body has been bisected by a surgical procedure taught in the 1930s. The knife cuts are precise and there is surprisingly little bruising, suggesting the killer knew anatomy. Meanwhile, the FBI runs her fingerprints through its files. Within an hour, they have a match. Elizabeth Short had been fingerprinted in a minor 1943 arrest and a job application. The name is confirmed, and what happens next grinds the investigation into high gear. News of the victim's identity spreads immediately. Hearst reporters in Los Angeles latch onto the story. Within hours, a team from the Los Angeles Examiner contacts Phoebe Short, Elizabeth's mother, in Boston. They deceitfully claim to be asking about her daughter's beauty queen wins, all the while hiding the truth. Finally, they coldly inform Phoebe that Elizabeth is dead. The newspapers seize on details of Elizabeth's wardrobe and life. They even label her an adventurous, prowling Hollywood boulevard and call her the Black Dahlia. One editor later recalls receiving a phone call from someone saying he was the killer, congratulating the paper's coverage and ominously promising more souvenirs of the Dahlia would come. Los Angeles is gripped by horror and morbid fascination as the case dominates headlines. The LAPD mobilizes all resources. Detectives interview scores of suspects. More than 150 people are questioned. Because the dissection of the body was so clean, police even consider medical professionals as suspects. Robert "Red" Manley is brought in for a second time. He sits for a lie detector and continues to cooperate. Authorities eventually clear him of murder. The hunt stretches on. Detectives examine storm drains, rooftops, even an A-frame motel room in Redondo Beach, where an earlier crime scene had coincidentally occurred. Meanwhile, the Examiner continues to receive letters and pictures addressed to Dahlia. Cut-and-paste ransom notes sent by someone taunting the police. Through it all, every lead seems to dry up. Investigators follow every possible clue. They find the victim's belongings in a nearby field. Her shoes and handbag had been soaked in gasoline and dumped, wiping away prints. On January 24th, the Examiner receives a chilling package. Elizabeth's birth certificate, business cards, photos, carefully cut from newspapers, plus a note saying, "Here is Dahlia's belongings." The contents had all been meticulously cleaned with gasoline, just as the body was. Police suspect the killer sent the package, but the partial fingerprints lifted from the envelope were also wiped clean by the gasoline and become useless. With no new evidence, the case seems to stall. Rumors swirl, but concrete answers remain elusive. As weeks pass, the investigation grows cold. Scores of false confessions pour in from strangers, and dozens of books later speculate endlessly about the killer's identity. Some theorists even link the Black Dahlia to other grisly crimes like the Cleveland torso murders. At one point, suspicion briefly falls on Elizabeth's own family. Her father, Leslie Short, was questioned, but ultimately released. In recent years, a former detective claimed Dr. George Hoddle, father of Private Eye Steve Hoddle, was responsible, but no charges were ever filed. Officially, the FBI acknowledges there is no known solution. Who killed the Black Dahlia and why? It's a mystery. The murderer has never been found. Elizabeth Short's death remains one of Los Angeles' most famous unsolved crimes. More than 70 years later, the Black Dahlia case still casts a shadow. It became one of the first major crimes in post-war America to capture national attention, and its gruesome details have inspired countless books and films. James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia, 1987, and its film adaptation are perhaps the most famous retellings. But as the FBI bluntly notes, the killer was never found and probably never will be. Night falls over Los Angeles, and a makeshift memorial of flowers and candles continues to mark the empty lot where Elizabeth Short's body was found. The city moves on, but the memory remains. The Black Dahlia's mystery remains among the most notorious unsolved murders and continues to fascinate the world.